Donald Trump invited a Mexican kingpin to the White House. No, it wasn't El Chapo. On July 28, 2020, the President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, also known as AMLO, visited the White House for the first time. He and the purpose of his visit isn't what we are going to talk about today. Each of the presidents also invited from each of their countries to attend a White House dinner, a group of 10 or so friends or business executives. The attendees from the United States were a group of CEOs and other higher-ups in major corporations and the like. We are not going to get into who they are today, but I will leave links in the description. The attendees from Mexico were the wealthy elite. In fact, the wealthiest of Mexico. How they got their fortunes we can perhaps get into in another video. Subscribe and leave comments if you would like to know more about them. The purpose of this dinner and what they talked about was never really mentioned to the public, but with the guests' flavorful histories, you can bet it was for more than just a taco party. Okay, so big deal. Some VIPs had dinner at the White House. You are probably wondering what all this is doing on a channel that primarily is about timeshare. And more importantly, who is the Kingpin? Stick around, we are getting to that. Okay, now let's get to the point. In this video, we will be only talking about one of the mysterious visitors to that dinner. Some say he's a superhero. He's been called a philanthropist and a do-gooder. But he's also been called a fraud, a gangster, and an assassin. He's been accused of bribing politicians, working with drug cartels, ecocide, human trafficking, and much more. Who we are going to talk about today is Daniel Chavez Moran, the Mexican timeshare kingpin. Yes, that's right. Daniel Chavez Moran, aside from his many claims to fame, his company, or should I say companies, his timeshare company has changed names numerous times over the years. Some say that's to avoid the lawsuits and bad publicity. Anyway, his company is by far the largest timeshare company in Mexico, boasting $500 million in sales annually. Daniel Chavez celebrating $500 million in sales. And even with all those millions, there have been several lawsuits for not paying employees. And recently he fired over 5,000 employees during the pandemic. Apparently he doesn't care much about the ones that make him his millions. The headline reads, "Millionaire without shame." In 15 years of trial, the owner of Mayan Palace, Daniel Chavez Moran, refuses to pay his best timeshare salespeople. And this one reads, owner of Vidanta fires 5,131 employees in Nayarit and Quintana Roo. Well, that's just the beginning of the news articles. We will start light and move on to some more juicy stuff. But first, let's dig deeper into the Daniel Chavez story. Like Barack Obama, there is a bit of controversy over his birth certificate. The birth record was registered in April, but he wasn't born until November. Interesting. Yes, there are many questions about who really is Daniel Chavez and how he accumulated his fortune. Besides Obama, it seems, Daniel Chavez also has a lot in common with Donald Trump. Well, let's see. They both are involved with real estate. They both like younger women, and mostly they both seem to escape lawsuits, scandals, and criminal charges unscathed. Now let's get on with the Daniel Chavez story from the beginning. The basic story is like this. Daniel Chavez was born in 1951 in the town of Las Delicias in the state of Chihuahua, a state well known for drug trafficking and cultivation. In the 50s, that area was mainly producing and exporting opium. Daniel Chavez came from humble beginnings, although one reporter doubts the story of his birth in Chihuahua, not only because of his birth certificate, but after interviewing people in Las Delicias, no one seems to have heard of the Chavez family. There are also conflicting reports of whether he was born in 1951 or 1952, and where he was actually born. His birth certificate shown online says November 16, 1951 in Las Delicias, Chihuahua. But there is another report that says he was born in Camargo, Chihuahua, which it so happens is the town. If you watch the TV show Narcos, where the DEA agent Enrique Camarena discovered Caro Quintero's ranch with tons of marijuana and was probably killed there. Quinteros is free till this day. You can see why Daniel might not want to be associated with Camargo, Chihuahua, the home of the narco of Narcos. The links are in the description. But as the story goes, Daniel Chavez came from a large, humble family. His mother, Delia Moore, was a school teacher. Apparently, his father passed away when he was young, and his mother moved the family to Mexico City. He later went to the university in Guadalajara, Jalisco, and studied to be an engineer. After graduating, as the story goes, he worked at a hotel as a waiter or bartender, and also built some soccer fields. After graduating, he was working at a hotel in Guadalajara. Note this was at the same time Caro Quintero was organizing the famous Guadalajara cartel. Daniel Chavez was building soccer fields. After he built a few soccer fields, with his savings from that and his pay from the hotel, he went to Mazatlan, Sinaloa, where years later El Chapo was caught. In Mazatlan, Daniel Chavez, at 22 years old, built his first luxury beachfront hotel. Many people wonder, how did a college graduate, probably making $1 a day in Mexico at that time, manage to save the money to buy beachfront property, build a hotel, and hire people to start selling timeshare? Pretty amazing. And within a few years, he has built an empire, but not without lawsuits, scandals, accusations of him or people in his company bribing government officials, human trafficking, and even murder. Let's continue. Daniel Chavez and his political connections. All good criminals and businessmen understand the value of rubbing elbows with politicians, and Daniel Chavez has done his share of elbow rubbing. On the right, there is a photo of El Chapo with the two previous Mexican presidents. Superimposed, at the famous El Chapo trial, witnesses testified that millions of dollars had been delivered to these two on behalf of El Chapo. There is an expression in Mexico: drug money doesn't buy politicians, it creates them. Daniel Chavez knew early on he needed politicians as friends and was willing to pay for that friendship. In the northern border state of Sonora, a state well known for drug trafficking, there is a small town called Puerto Peñasco, also known as Rocky Point. Well, Mr. Moran happens to own 25,000 acres there. The property even has its own airport. It has reportedly been used by drug traffickers. In an interview from a blog post, a journalist from the area tells a story about Ignacio Chavez Moran, Daniel's brother. We will talk more about him later. The journalist tells how Ignacio came to his office and offers him a partnership in a hotel project on the property called Miami Palace. The journalist, Alberto Alreda Valdez, answered, "Mr. Chavez, I don't have money to invest." Ignacio answered, "We are not interested in your money. We are interested in your friendship with Manlio Fabio Beltrones, who was at that time running for governor and later was said to be connected to the famous trafficker, the Lord of the Skies, called that because of his fleet of airplanes used for smuggling drugs." More on Ignacio and Rocky Point coming. The headline reads, "The Philanthropist, the Assassin, and their Mayan Kingdom." Mayan Palace owner Daniel Chavez Moran conspires with the Bulgarian Valentino Danchev to create an empire of impunity and deceit. Daniel Chavez Moran made friends with the President of the Republic to achieve impunity. Valentino Danchev, from military to hotel partner in Mexico. Valentino pays $21 million to rent hotels from Daniel Chavez Moran. Valentino and his net of murky businesses in the U.S. This news story covers many things about the famous timeshare Kingpin. We will go over some of them in detail. The link to this is in the description. Here's a few tidbits from inside the previous article. Mercenary creates hotel empire. Members of organized crime like Jose Gerardo Alvarez, aka El Indio, used as bodyguards Danchev's security team. Valentino Danchev, in charge of the sales team of Miami Palace, set up a migratory network to bring Europeans as salespeople. There is a whole series of stories, in the sense that when the federal police arrested Gerardo Alvarez, known as El Indio, a capo close to the Barbie, it was revealed that his security team was from Valentino's company. With this scandal, he preferred to sell it. Fueled by ambition. One of Chavez's favorite phrases is shouted from the rooftops is that Mexicans don't have balls, which is why he hires foreigners. There are more than 200 that arrive annually at the houses that you rent in Playa del Carmen to use them in the sale of the so-called timeshare. It is a kind of trafficking of white men and women, which included the arrival of Galina Chanko, a young woman who was allegedly killed by throwing herself from the 19th floor of a luxurious tower in the hotel zone. Of course, all newcomers are asked for their passport, supposedly to process residence papers at the National Immigration Institute. But it is one way to keep them controlled. One of the 100 most important businessmen in Mexico, despite the ecocide committed. He passes himself off as a millionaire philanthropist who does charity work. The truth is that he has imposed his own law on the various governments on the basis of bribery, blackmail, cronyism, and friendships. Chavez, protected by his enormous financial power, and his political friends. In addition, the damage incurred to the patrimony of Mexicans must be repaired with a millionaire fine. Centurion was just one of his unorthodox businesses. He also owns a place in Alfredo V. Bonfils de Ejido that he used as a funhouse and where all kinds of characters converged to entertain themselves with girls that he brought from Bulgaria and nearby countries, who with their beautiful blonde hair, clear eyes, 1.8 meters tall and high heels, enlivened the joy of the audience. The place aroused suspicions and, despite its apparent success, it was closed. Running these question businesses, surrounded by suspicious people, brings its consequences. In April 2010, he was picked up by a group of heavily armed hooded men. After the incident, he filed a complaint with the Attorney General for having been the subject of a scam. According to page 220b of Book X, saying it was raised by mistake. When he filed that complaint, Danchev gave his address to the Mayan Palace in the Riviera Maya. Here's a few more. The link to the original article is in the description. Danchev creates a network of companies in 4 days. The new rich starts several companies in Arizona, operating from the same domicile. Brought a few hours before from Europe to live in a Jorge Emilio Gonzalez party. Galina Chankova found her death in Cancun after falling 19 stories. An affair between false ecologists and ecocides. The Green Boy free from homicide investigation. It is not without problems in Puerto Peñasco. Upon arrival, he installed a control tower with 25 radios to supposedly communicate with his operators. One day a military convoy arrived and took over the facilities because that tower was used by drug traffickers. According to military intelligence data, Valentino says he knew nothing. and managed to evade justice. On April 2nd, 2011, in a strange way, the Bulgarian Galina Chanko-Vakeneva, 25 years old, died, who was at a party on the 19th floor, apartment B, of Emerald Residential Tower and Spa in Cancun. It is not known if she fell or was cast from that height. It is a matter that was left with many doubts, but it involves and relates to Valentinov Danchev Kaloyan, director of sales of the Vedanta Group in the Mayan Riviera, and Jorge Emilio Gonzalez, co-owner of the Green Party franchise, and heir by bloodline of all the businesses that are generated in this electoral company, with an environmentalist flag. One hand washes the other. The links between Daniel Chavez Moran, owner of a predatory hotel of nature, with this environmentalist leader are not surprising or rare, although it seems a contradiction. It is part of a modus operandi. For the now senator, it should be remembered that several years ago a video revealed he asked the businessman for $2 million in exchange for helping him approve the destruction of a protected area. Thus, the generosity of the pseudo-ecologist for Jorge Emilio is an entire economic model, and with Daniel Chavez, it was not different. Wow, there's some surprising stuff in that article, and more than we can cover in detail in this video. We will be adding more videos on this later, but for now we will give a few more details of some of the stories. Let's continue. Earlier we talked about Puerto Peñasco, where Daniel Chavez owns 25,000 acres and an airport, and in the 90s, where Daniel Chavez's brother Ignacio offered a journalist to be partners in the company, just for sharing his friendship with the soon-to-be governor. Also where, according to the previous article, Valentinov Danchev, Daniel Chavez's right-hand man, apparently was questioned about the use of the airport by trafficker well before the construction of the Mayan Palace Resort. Puerto Peñasco was an unknown town in the middle of the desert. Yes, there was some old shrimp boats and the soon-to-be famous Mar de Cortez International Airport. It is suspected that at that time, an airport in the middle of nowhere that could land large airplanes and was very close to the US border had other uses. Getting back to Ignacio Chavez Moran, well, it seems Ignacio and his son Eduardo Chavez also wanted in on the timeshare game. Unfortunately, as the story goes, they got into a bit of trouble. Apparently they from Puerto Peñasco, out of a hotel then called Fiesta de Cortez, started selling pre-construction condos and timeshares. Their mistake was number one, never delivering deeds, or the units for that matter. The second mistake was advertising and selling to Arizona residents, most of them elderly. They had taken Arizona residents for $378,000, one report read. Anyway, because of advertising and some contracts being signed in Arizona, where at least back then, they had no friendly politicians to protect them, lawsuits were filed, cease and desist orders were served, and so on. Finally, it seems at least some of the people did get their money back. The company Fiesta de Cortez was dissolved, and the name was changed to Golden Hill Boutique Resort, and several changes afterward. Speaking of lawsuits, well, of the two brothers Daniel and Ignacio, Daniel obviously has bigger visions even when it comes to lawsuits. Ignacio allegedly took people for a mere $375,000. A class action lawsuit filed in California claimed Daniel and his many companies took people for hundreds of millions. The lawsuit claimed that the company or companies used lies and other high-pressure or fraudulent sales tactics to trick them into purchasing timeshares. The lawsuit was eventually dismissed, and Daniel Chavez talks about it on his blog as one of his life's challenges. Now let's look into some of his other challenges. There was at one time a series of videos on YouTube called The Philanthropist, The Assassin, and their Mayan Empire, named after the news article shown earlier. Apparently the videos were recorded by inside whistleblowers. All but one of those videos have been taken down. Before we continue, watch a bit of how the timeshare sales and training process goes at Daniel Chavez hotels.
As soon as the sales reps meet with the customers, they introduce themselves with different titles, depending on whether they have members or prospects in front of them. If they're already members, the sales reps are trained to say that they are member specialists working directly for the Vita Vacations corporate office, and are here to help the members understand how to use their membership to its full extent. In case of complaints of the members, they will then say that the previous sales rep wasn't a member specialist. Let's listen to the following audio clip, recorded by a Vita Vacations member during a sales presentation in Nuevo Vallarta, which they call a members update.
The company created a special group of member specialists in every one of our locations. Okay, the company gave me a huge promotion to be part of this special unit, special team that's only here for you. Okay, and we're not in sales. We're some sort of a link between sales and member services. What I want to do for you today is help you maximize the benefits in your contract. Okay, we are no longer operating contracts anymore.
If they are prospects that haven't purchased from Vita Vacations yet, the sales reps are trained to say that they're not commission-based and that they don't really care if they sell or not. This makes the prospects feel relaxed and they drop their guard. The truth is that Vita Vacations is systematically deceiving their members and prospects.
Your whole tour is based on setting these people up for a fall. Everything we do here, what we call trick fuck. Just trick fucking these people.
Short but interesting clip. High pressure sales. Daniel Chavez salespeople seem to be well trained in high pressure and deception. There are many online accounts of people being held hostage for up to 9 hours in these sales presentations. If you have vacationed in Mexico, you probably have been asked to attend one of their famous sales presentations. Or if you have stayed at one of his hotels, Sea Garden, Mayan Palace, Bliss, Grand Bliss, or the Grand Lux, and been to one of their enormous sales rooms, you probably already own one of his timeshares. It is said that few escape without buying. Moving forward. And yet another lawsuit. Now this is a sad story. Not about millions of dollars, but about the loss of a young man's life. Headline: Court sanctions hotel negligent. They tried to hide that a young man was electrocuted in an artificial lake due to a damaged pump. Some youths were caking on an artificial lake at the Acapulco Mayan Palace Hotel, and one was electrocuted to death. The family sued Daniel Chavez and the hotel. After 4 years, the judge found the hotel negligent, and the family was awarded 30 million Mexican pesos, about $1 million US at the time. Daniel Chavez's lawyers appealed the decision, stating, because they are just a middle-class family, they don't deserve so much money. Later, another judge agreed and said, now, get this doesn't have to make someone poor. Chavez and another rich, the family, and the amount was reduced to 1 million pesos, about 40,000 US dollars. We are all glad Mr. Chavez wasn't made poor over this young man's death. And the death of a young girl. This story was mentioned briefly in the earlier news article, but we think it deserves a little more attention. Headline: Galena-induced suicide. The state attorney's office always had evidence, but it hid it. That Jorge Emilio Gonzalez Martinez is the owner of the Emerald Tower apartment from which the Bulgarian Galina Chanko-Chanev was thrown. The medical report revealed that she was raped and attacked moments before falling. Now this is a bit of a long story, which deserves a bit of detail. To be fair, it's not clear if Daniel Chavez was directly involved in this scandal. His right-hand man Valentinov Danshev and his alleged human trafficking ring certainly was. Coming up, we will talk about the players in this and their connections to Mr. Chavez. Some of the players. Galina Chanko-Chanev, the victim. Originally from Karnobat, a city of 20,000 in southeast Bulgaria, Galina Chanko-Chanev, affectionately called Galia, died at the age of 25. After falling from the 19th floor of the Emerald Tower in Cancun. She wasn't more than 12 hours in Mexico, a country she did not know, where she died in circumstances not yet clarified. Galina, or Galia, resided in the Bulgarian capital, where she studied philosophy and psychology at the University of Sofia. Valentinov Koloyan Danshev, Chavez's right-hand man. Valentinov Koloyan Danshev, project director, Vedanta Group Chavez Company, also originally from Bulgaria, and as previously mentioned, had a funhouse in Cancun where he brought girls from Bulgaria and neighboring countries to entertain. It was reported that he rented the apartment in the Emerald Tower for $6,000 per month. He wrote a handwritten letter to the neighbors that said, I want to inform you that on April 2nd, 2011, I rented apartment 19B to friends to organize a party in which a young woman ended her life. The reasons are unknown. I offer my sincere apologies to you and the residents for the inconvenience this may have caused. Jorge Emilio Gonzalez Martinez, aka Green Boy. Jorge Emilio Gonzalez Martinez, born April 16th, 1972, in Mexico City, popularly known as El Niño Verde. The Green Boy is a Mexican politician affiliated with the Ecologist Green Party of Mexico, PVAM. He serves as a senator in the legislature of the Mexican Congress representing Quintana Roo. He also served as a senator from 2000 to 2006 and as a federal deputy from 1997 to 2000. The apartment owner. And more. Mario Pedev, also Bulgarian, operates an international model agency. Mario Pediv, part of the Bulgarian connection, reportedly hired the young Bulgarian girl Galina to entertain at the VIP party at the Emerald Tower. In a statement to the police, he claimed she went into a bedroom with two men. He heard her screaming and ran out of the room with a can opener in her hand and jumped from the balcony. Forensic experts confirmed she had been raped by two men and had defensive wounds. Pediv also claimed she had ingested drugs, and drugs were abundant at the party. Enrique Peña Nieto, ex-president of Mexico. Enrique Peña Nieto, presidential candidate at the time, reportedly was asked to do a favor for the Green Boy and have the investigation stopped. You may remember earlier we talked about testimony at the Chapo trial that he received millions in payoffs. Felix Gonzalez Cantu, ex-governor. Quintana Roo. Felix Gonzalez Cantu also reportedly helped to have the investigation stopped. He currently is being investigated for money laundering, among other things. Witnesses at the El Chapo trial also reported that he received money from the cartel. Reports show he has accumulated millions, if not billions of dollars in property around the world, including a luxurious condo in Dubai. Daniel Chavez Moran, owner Vidanta Group. Daniel Chavez Moran, the star of our story. Well, as I said earlier, we do not know to what extent he was involved in this. We do know of his political connections to all of the aforementioned politicians. It is also known that Valentino Danchev, the Bulgarian who rented the apartment, was originally recruited as an ordinary timeshare salesman and was moved up the ranks by Daniel Chavez, and it seems unlikely that alone he had the political connections to have the investigation stopped. Our story continues. Putting the pieces together. Well, it's a sad story, with all the details swept under the rug. A poor young girl apparently was tricked into coming to Cancun on the premise of becoming a model. There was a party organized for VIPs in the Emerald Tower in Cancun. Who are these VIPs? We will never know. The security videos from the building that night all have been lost, destroyed, or the cameras were not working that night. Galina's death was declared a suicide, and the case was closed. It shows that with money, power, and political friends, you can literally get away with murder. In Mexico, they say un politico pobre is un pobre politico. A poor politician is a poor politician. It is well known that Mexico is run by these elite business executives and drug cartels. Assuming there is a separation, the question still remains, what were these elite business executives doing at the White House, and what deals they could have made with Donald Trump? Well, let's continue with our Daniel Chavez story. And yet another assassination connected to Mayan Palace. They assassinate the secretary. They deny connection to his position. Jose de Jesus Gallegos Alvarez, called a self-made millionaire. He was a civil engineer, like Chavez, and at one time was construction director, and developed the concept Mayan Palace and Grupo Mayan, which was the name of Chavez's company at the time. Reports say he and Chavez had a falling out after attempts on his life. He had lived in exile in the Houston area in a mansion complete with a moat around it for 7 years. There are questions as why this man, after hiding out in Houston, number 1, was appointed the position of tourism secretary. He had no political background. And number 2, why he accepted the job and returned to Mexico knowing his life was threatened. After returning to Mexico, and only 9 days of taking his new position, he was murdered in broad daylight. It was reported that his death had nothing to do with his new position, but his business dealings. Moving on. Danielle makes new friends. Vidanta and hack Hassan to invest $150 million in Mexico. Three months later, Hack Hassan Group linked to money laundering in new report. Former chairman arrested. Keeping it clean. That's all on Danielle Chavez for now, although we could go on for days. In the photo below, on the top we have the President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and Donald Trump. And on the bottom, we have the group of Mexican business executives invited to the White House. Danielle Chavez second from the right. This group is the richest of Mexico, and many say that they and their families control the country. They all have equally interesting stories. As our star in this video, the timeshare kingpin Danielle Chavez Moran. Let us know in the comment section if you would like to know more on Danielle Chavez or the wealthy elite of Mexico, and how they acquired their fortunes. And yes, we are still wondering what was the purpose of this group's visit to the White House. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like and share.